When the stakes are high, most people do the exact opposite of what they should. They rush. They panic. They react based on fear, pressure, or ego. They make decisions in the heat of the moment, hoping speed will save them. Warren Buffett does something different. He slows down. He steps back. He lets the noise fade until he can see the situation clearly. Buffett understands something simple but powerful. When the cost of being wrong is high, the value of thinking rises even higher. Smart decisions aren't made under stress. They're made with calm, steady judgment. And judgment only works when your mind is quiet enough to see the facts for what they are, not what you wish they were. One of Buffett's guiding principles is this: you don't have to swing at every pitch. In other words, you don't need to make a decision just because someone wants an answer. You don't need to be fast. You need to be right. High-stakes moments test your patience more than your intelligence. Anyone can think clearly when nothing is on the line. Only a few can think clearly when everything is on the line. When Buffett faces a big decision, he relies on a simple process. First, he gathers information. Not opinions. Not hype. Not predictions. Facts. Cold, unemotional facts. He reads. He observes. He studies the past. He listens carefully. He takes the time to understand what's actually happening, not what people are saying is happening. Because high-stakes decisions collapse when they're built on assumptions. Next, Buffett strips away emotion. He knows emotion is the enemy of judgment. Fear makes problems look bigger. Excitement hides the risks. Pressure pushes you toward mistakes. So he removes all of that. He asks himself, if I were advising someone I cared about, someone I wanted to protect, what would I tell them to do? That simple question removes ego and brings clarity. Then comes the question he's asked his entire career: what's the downside? Buffett doesn't chase potential profits. He studies potential losses. He looks at the worst-case scenario and asks, can I survive it? Can I accept it? If the answer is no, he walks away, no matter how tempting the opportunity looks. Because here's the truth he lives by: big success doesn't come from taking big risks. It comes from avoiding the big mistakes that destroy people. When the stakes are high, the cost of one wrong decision can outweigh years of hard work. Buffett refuses to gamble with what he can't afford to lose. And there's another part of his approach that people don't talk about enough. Buffett never lets urgency decide for him. High-stakes situations often come with deadlines, pressure, or a sense of now or never. He steps past all of that and asks a different question: will this still make sense tomorrow? Next week? Next year? If the answer is uncertain, he waits. Waiting is not weakness. It's discipline. It's strength. It's the willingness to let an opportunity pass because the terms aren't clear enough, the information isn't complete enough, or the risks aren't understood well enough. Most people panic at the thought of missing out. Buffett is comfortable missing out on almost everything, because the few things he does choose make all the difference. This mindset protects him. It keeps him steady when others are shaken. It helps him make smart decisions not by guessing the future, but by preparing for it. And here's where Buffett's thinking becomes even more valuable. When the stakes are high, he doesn't just rely on logic. He relies on principles, rules he never breaks, no matter how attractive the opportunity may seem. These principles act like guardrails. They protect him from emotional decisions. They protect him from being influenced by pressure. They protect him from himself. One of those principles is staying within his circle of competence. Buffett only makes big decisions in areas he deeply understands. If he doesn't understand something, he walks away instantly. Not because he's afraid, but because he respects the cost of ignorance. High-stakes decisions don't forgive guesswork. You either know what you're doing, or you don't. And if you don't, the smartest decision you can make is to say no. Another principle is this: never risk what you have for what you don't need. Think about that. Most people lose everything chasing something extra. Something shiny. Something exciting. They risk stability for speed. They risk long-term security for short-term thrills. Buffett doesn't play that game. He protects his foundation first. Only when the base is solid does he consider taking the next step. This is how you stay alive when the pressure is on. He also believes that high-stakes decisions should be boring. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Not filled with tension. If a decision feels chaotic or rushed, he knows something is wrong. Smart decisions feel calm. They feel steady. They feel clean. When the reasoning is clear, the choice becomes obvious. When the reasoning is shaky, he waits until it becomes strong. Buffett also uses time as a tool. While most people fear time, he welcomes it. Time exposes the truth. Time reveals whether something is real or temporary. Time shows what short-term emotions try to hide. So when the stakes are high, he gives himself the gift of space. He lets the dust settle. He watches how things unfold. He pays attention to trends, not moments. He's not afraid of missing out. He's afraid of making a big mistake that could have been avoided with a little patience. Another key part of his method is reducing decisions to their simplest form. Buffett strips away the noise. He ignores opinions. He ignores the crowd. He ignores predictions. He looks at the core question underneath everything: does this make sense? If the answer requires too much explaining, he walks away. High-stakes decisions are not supposed to be complicated. They are supposed to be clear. And when he finally makes a decision, he makes it with full conviction. No hesitation. No second-guessing. That confidence doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from preparation. It comes from clarity. It comes from removing emotion, studying risk, and relying on principles instead of impulses. This is why Buffett survives storms that wipe out others. This is why he thrives when the pressure rises. This is why he makes smart decisions even when billions are on the line. He isn't smarter than everyone else. He's calmer. He's clearer. He's more patient. He has built a system that protects him from high-stakes danger and steers him toward long-term success. Another thing Buffett does exceptionally well is separating the moment from the mission. When the stakes are high, most people get caught up in the moment. They focus on the pressure. They focus on what could go wrong. They focus on how quickly they need to act. But Buffett zooms out. He looks at the long-term mission rather than the short-term moment. He asks himself, will this decision still matter 5 years from now? 10 years from now? That question alone instantly reduces stress. It removes unnecessary urgency. It reveals whether the decision is truly important or just feels important because emotions are running high. High-stakes moments often trick people into believing everything is critical. Buffett knows that's rarely true. When you zoom out, most decisions lose their intensity. Only a few remain truly meaningful. Those are the ones worth your time and your best judgment. Buffett also believes in creating a margin of safety, not just in investing, but in life. A margin of safety means giving yourself room to be wrong, room to make mistakes, room to learn without destroying everything you've built. He never pushes himself to the edge. He never bets everything. He always leaves space for uncertainty. Because no matter how smart you are, uncertainty never goes away. And in high-stakes moments, uncertainty becomes even more dangerous. Buffett knows the smartest person isn't the one who predicts the future. It's the one who protects themselves from what they cannot predict. Another part of Buffett's approach is removing noise. When pressure rises, the world gets loud. Advice pours in. Predictions fly everywhere. Opinions shift from day to day. People react emotionally, hoping they can influence the outcome. Buffett shuts all of it out. He narrows his focus. He listens only to the facts, the data, and a few trusted voices. He once said, "The stock market is there to serve you, not instruct you." The same goes for people's opinions. They're noise, not instruction. Smart decisions require silence. Silence to think. Silence to evaluate. Silence to let truth rise to the surface. Buffett also relies heavily on what he calls mental models, simple frameworks that help him see problems clearly. For example, he uses inversion. Instead of asking, "How can this succeed?" he asks, "How could this fail?" By flipping the question, he spots risks others miss. He removes blind spots. He avoids traps. This mindset helps him stay grounded when others lose their balance. High-stakes situations don't scare him because he prepares for them long before they arrive. He builds habits of careful thinking. He builds habits of patience. He builds habits of discipline. When the pressure peaks, he's not improvising. He's relying on skills he's practiced for decades. And perhaps the most powerful part of Buffett's decision-making process is that he doesn't let pride get in the way. Pride is the enemy of smart choices. Pride makes you defend bad decisions. Pride makes you ignore warning signs. Pride pushes you to act fast so you don't look uncertain. Buffett has no interest in appearing perfect. He cares about being right more than looking confident. He cares about truth more than approval. He cares about results more than reputation. That humility gives him an advantage. When the stakes are high, he doesn't pretend to know everything. He admits what he doesn't understand. He asks questions. He stays curious instead of defensive. That curiosity leads him to better answers. Another pillar of Buffett's approach is the power of detachment. When the stakes are high, most people get emotionally attached to outcomes. They want things to go a certain way, and that desire clouds their judgment. Buffett avoids that trap by stepping back from the outcome and focusing on the process instead. He often says, "You can't control results. You can only control decisions." This mindset frees him from stress and allows him to think clearly. He can look at situations without forcing them to fit a story. He can see risks without denying them. He can accept reality without fighting it. When you detach from the outcome, you suddenly see the truth more easily. Another technique Buffett uses is simplifying choices. He doesn't let complexity overwhelm him. If a decision feels too complicated, he treats it as a warning sign. Complexity hides danger. Clarity reveals it. So he breaks big decisions into smaller questions. Is this within my circle of competence? Do I understand the risks? Is the potential downside acceptable? Does this make sense without emotion? If the answers aren't clear, he waits. Because confusion is a sign that more thinking is required. He also considers opportunity cost. When the stakes are high, every decision has two outcomes: what you gain and what you lose by choosing it. Most people only focus on what they might gain. Buffett looks at what he might be giving up: time, attention, energy, other opportunities. He knows the wrong choice doesn't just set you back, it blocks you from better paths. And when things get chaotic, Buffett doesn't isolate himself in fear. He leans on wisdom. He studies history. He reads constantly. He learns from mistakes, his own and everyone else's. He doesn't rely on luck or instinct. He relies on patterns. He relies on knowledge. He relies on experience. This is why he rarely panics. The more you know, the less you fear. The more you understand, the calmer you become. Buffett knows that fear thrives in ignorance, and confidence grows in clarity. Another part of his process involves imagining the consequences of the decision long before making it. He asks himself, if this goes wrong, how will I feel? If this goes right, what changes? Will this move me closer to my long-term goals, or distract me from them? High-stakes decisions aren't about the next week, they're about the next decade. Buffett lives by long-term thinking. He knows quick decisions made under pressure rarely stand the test of time. But deliberate decisions based on core principles almost always do. And perhaps the most important lesson from Buffett is this: he builds a life that doesn't require constant high-stakes decisions in the first place. People who live in chaos always face big, stressful choices. People who build stability, patience, discipline, and strong habits avoid many of those choices entirely. Buffett sets his life up so he rarely has to make emergency decisions. He plans ahead. He stays prepared. He avoids situations where the stakes become unnecessarily high. You don't rise to the occasion. You rise to your preparation. That is Warren Buffett's secret. When the stakes are high, he doesn't rely on panic, pressure, or guesswork. He relies on years of careful thinking, simple principles, and a mindset designed to stay calm under fire. Now let's look at another key part of Buffett's approach: learning from the mistakes of others. High-stakes decisions become easier when you don't have to pay the price for every lesson yourself. Buffett spends years studying disasters, failed companies, failed leaders, failed decisions. Not out of criticism, but out of curiosity. He wants to understand what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how to avoid repeating it. He often says, "It's good to learn from your mistakes. It's better to learn from other people's mistakes." That mindset saves time, money, and energy. When the stakes are high, every error becomes expensive. Buffett reduces his risk by letting history teach him instead of experience punishing him. For him, knowledge is a shield. Another insight he relies on is staying brutally honest with himself. When faced with a tough decision, he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He doesn't pretend a bad situation is good. He doesn't ignore problems because they're uncomfortable. He confronts reality directly. Honesty sharpens judgment. Denial destroys it. This honesty also helps him avoid emotional traps. When you lie to yourself, even in small ways, your decisions become weaker. Buffett stays strong because he always deals with truth. No excuses. No shortcuts. No illusions. He also avoids overconfidence. High stakes make people feel like they need to prove something. They start believing they can't fail. They convince themselves they're smarter than the situation. Buffett does the opposite. He assumes he can be wrong. He assumes the world can surprise him. That humility becomes a strategic advantage. It keeps him cautious, careful, and grounded, especially when the pressure rises. Another powerful technique Buffett uses is scenario thinking. He imagines different outcomes before they happen. Best case, worst case, middle case. He runs each scenario through his decision filters. If a catastrophe scenario is too destructive, he steps away. If the best-case scenario isn't meaningful, he passes. If the middle scenario aligns with his goals, he moves forward confidently. Most people only look at one scenario, the one they hope for. Buffett looks at all of them. That's why he's rarely caught off guard. He also treats high-stakes decisions as a responsibility, not a challenge. He doesn't seek to win. He seeks to avoid unnecessary loss. This mindset changes everything. Instead of chasing victory, he protects his foundation. Instead of trying to impress, he tries to endure. Instead of seeking big breakthroughs, he avoids big setbacks. Because here's the truth Buffett understands. You don't need to make extraordinary decisions to succeed. You just need to avoid the catastrophic ones. And one of his most practical rules is this: if something requires courage, it's probably not the right decision. Buffett believes courage is needed when you're trying to force a result. Smart decisions feel calm. They feel reasonable. They feel sustainable. You don't need courage to do the right thing. You only need courage to do something risky. High-stakes choices shouldn't feel like a gamble. They should feel like a natural extension of your best judgment. Buffett also has a unique ability to ignore short-term emotions and focus on long-term consequences. When others panic, he stays focused on principles. When others chase trends, he stays anchored in fundamentals. When others react emotionally, he responds logically. This is how he turns chaos into opportunity. This is how he stays steady when everything around him shakes. This is how he consistently makes smart decisions, even when the pressure is heavy. Another core principle in Buffett's high-stakes decision-making is this: never let urgency become your advisor. Urgency is emotional. Urgency pushes you forward before you're ready. Urgency turns pressure into mistakes. Buffett avoids it at all costs. He understands that when someone says, "You must decide right now," what they're really saying is, "I don't want you to think." And Buffett always thinks. He slows the moment down. He steps out of the emotional current. He reminds himself that time is a tool, not a threat. Even in high-stakes situations, the right decision becomes clearer when the mind is calm and the pace is steady. Buffett also protects himself from high-stakes danger through preparation. He builds systems. He builds routines. He builds habits that allow him to think clearly long before he actually needs to. Most people try to become smart thinkers only when the pressure hits. Buffett stays prepared every day. Pressure doesn't change him because he's already operating with discipline. This preparation shows up in his daily life. He reads constantly. He reflects. He avoids clutter, mental and physical. He surrounds himself with people who think independently. He doesn't allow stress, noise, or distraction to dominate his environment. When the stakes rise, he's already in a position of strength because he's built a mind that's ready. Another powerful part of his strategy is emotional neutrality. Buffett doesn't get too excited about wins or too discouraged by setbacks. Both emotions can distort judgment. When the stakes are high, emotional extremes are dangerous. They make small problems look big and big opportunities look perfect. Buffett avoids both illusions. He aims to think the same way whether he's gaining or losing, whether things look promising or uncertain, whether the world is calm or chaotic. That emotional consistency gives him clarity when it matters most. He also embraces the idea that doing nothing is sometimes the smartest decision. When the stakes are high, people feel guilty if they don't act. They feel like standing still is failing. Buffett sees it differently. Action isn't the goal, good action is. And if the right move isn't clear, inaction protects you. Inaction gives you time. Inaction keeps you from walking into a bad situation. Sometimes the best decision is to wait. Sometimes the best decision is to gather more information. Sometimes the best decision is to simply avoid a bad one. Buffett is a master at saying no. He says no far more often than yes. He doesn't chase trends. He doesn't jump at opportunities just because others are excited. He doesn't respond to pressure from the crowd. His power comes from restraint, not reaction. Another principle he follows is subtracting complexity. When the stakes are high, people often add complexity. More data, more opinions, more scenarios, more noise. Buffett simplifies. He trims away everything that doesn't matter until only the core remains. He asks, what's the real decision here? What's the one thing that matters most? What is the simplest explanation? Clarity is easier to find when you strip away the unnecessary. And throughout this entire process, Buffett keeps one thing front and center: character. He knows a person's true values reveal themselves in high-stakes moments. When you're under pressure, shortcuts look tempting. Compromises look easy. But Buffett refuses to violate his principles. He knows that one bad decision made in a moment of pressure can damage decades of trust and progress. So he chooses integrity. He chooses honesty. He chooses consistency. Even when the stakes are high. Especially when the stakes are high. Because he understands something simple. Success is not built on one brilliant decision. It's built on years of making good choices when it mattered.